Okay, so the first pedal we're going to talk about, and we're not going to discuss it much, is where all the origins of fuzz started. Okay, it wasn't really popular. It was the FC1, Maestro FC1, uh, that kind of set the whole thing off in 1962. Now, there's proof that it may have not have been the first fuzz. It's questionable if people in England were already building fuzz boxes at that point or not, but it's known that that kind of sort of set the stage for what would have become some of the most iconic pedals in the whole world. It didn't get a whole lot of use. It got its heyday in 1962 with with the with the with the song "Don't Worry About Me" by Marty Robbins, and then we see it again in 64, 65 with the Rolling Stones. So not a huge pedal in the way of artist use, huge pedal in the way of setting the page for future fuzzes or future pedals to come, not just fuzz, but future pedals to come. So since we talked a little bit about the Maestro fuzz tone from Gibson, next pedal we're going to talk about is a pedal from 1964, which is the Selmer buzz tone. It was a 3 transistor fuzz. It sort of copied the same proximate style or same circuit as the Maestro. Now, it's hard to tell, it's hard to say um, if it was exactly if it was built at the same around the same time, or if someone brought the Maestro over to England and said, "Hey, check this out." I.e., the only person that probably would have done that would have been Keith Richards, since he used it in 1964. But it's hard to tell. Uh, I have some notes here on the Selmer. Let me give you some. So the Selmer buzz tone um, was kind of the was sort of the sound of Pink Floyd. Okay, and you can hear this pedal all over. Well, I shouldn't say all over. You can hear it from Saucer Full of Secrets, and of course, Piper at the Gates of Sid Barrett, and that's that's kind of cool. I mean, like, I don't. The problem with this story is, did he actually use the Selmer pedal? Now, we know we use Selmer amps, and then later on, it's been rumored that he used Sola Sound, which would have been the tone bender. And like I said, that would have been, I think he came out with his first record in 66. So even though the Selmer kind of sort of came out in 64, it really didn't catch on in popularity later on. And then the next pedal is the Sola Sound Tone Bender, okay, which is the Mark One. It was also a kind of a take on the um, Maestro fuzz tone. The first iteration of this was in a wooden box, and it's hard to say who actually came up with the first one. Jim Marshall, Macari's, they're all really close in this one little area of the map, and so it's hard to say which one had what um, at the time. But then you had, like, the release date of it was 1965, so its design was really closely related to the Maestro. And then there's an argument over who created the Mark 1.5 and then the Sun and the Fuzz Face. From everything that I've read, the Mark 1.5 came out first. It had a higher tolerance value. It was a more aggressive, lower voltage fuzz than the Fuzz Face. Now, the Fuzz Face has gone through, even in the 60s, there's different years between each fuzz. So the first one, 66, comes around, and it's got silicone, or it's got germanium transistors, the NKT275s. There are replicas of the NKT275 fuzz face. Even those are astronomically expensive. The original ones are ungodly expensive, anywhere between $2,000 to $4,000 for one of these things. And the only people buying those, let's be real, the only people going to buy those is going to be collectors, right? Or professional musicians that can afford to pay that kind of price for a $2,000 pedal. Not even a pedal that came out in 1991 actually sells for more. So, and it's probably less rare than the other one. So the next one to come out after that would have been the Mark II. And it's a good pedal. I really liked the Mark 1.5. Some people say Jimmy Page played a Mark II. I say Jimmy Page played a Mark 1.5 and a Mark II. There are so many people that played different variations of both pedals, right? Of all three. So you're talking about three of the most popular pedals, probably replicated circuits in the world. Okay, the Mark 1.5, the Fuzz Face, and the Mark II. They're all super closely related to one another. The thing about it is that I wouldn't want to live on the difference between the Mark II and the Mark III. That's for sure. All right, then we come into, this is debatable, and I don't have a picture of it in the original photo, but I'm going to talk about it. Some people say the Electro-Harmonix Big Muff version 1 comes out in 67. This is a Mike Matthews. I love Mike Matthews. I think Mike Matthews, as far as people that can throw a line of BS, Mike Matthews is probably the best. Okay. There's no proof that Jimi Hendrix ever used a Big Muff. Okay. The Big Muff Pi. I own 3 different variations of Big Muff. Okay. I own the original one based off of the exact original circuit of Hendrix. I have one that's based off of the and they're all the Pi versions. So they're all the 3 or 4 transistor fuzz. Okay. There's not much difference between the pedals that I have compared to the sound that I get out of like Pink Floyd, Zappa, that kind of thing. Okay. I don't hear Jimi Hendrix in any recording of Jimi Hendrix at all sounding like a Big Muff. I just don't. And I think that's wild. First off, Jimi Hendrix played, for the most part, majority of his playing was done clean. And the secret sauce to his playing was literally the fact that he would roll the volume up of the guitar, and then whenever he'd go into his fuzz tone, he would just raise the volume on the guitar. Very seldom did that pedal ever actually come off for Jimi Hendrix. He used it more like an overdrive than he did anything. It went into an already cranked Marshall amp. Roll that volume up, and he got the tones that he was looking for. Okay. Nowhere in the history, or at least nowhere in anything I've heard, sounds like Jimi Hendrix out of a Big Muff. It just doesn't. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't register with me. I could be wrong. Mike Matthews could be right. There's people that have said that's not true. I think that the Electro-Harmonic comes out in 67. The first pedal's release date is 69. I don't think so. I think it was more like 1970, because by the time, so the argument that I have against this is that by the time that the pedal actually became a usable form, because there's a whole, so I love Josh E. Scott. He did a whole biography of Electro-Harmonix, and nowhere does it say that pedal actually was used by Hendrix. All right, so enough on Electro-Harmonix. Not really going to touch on the Mosrite Fuzzrite. It does the thing of like the Jordan Boss tone. It does that really, 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 really good. It kind of does like an octave thing a little bit. It's more like a ripping Velcro fuzz. It's good. It's not my favorite. And then we're going to go into like, okay, so we get the tone bender. Then there's the Vox tone bender, the color of sound super, the color of sound super tone bender, the Univox super fuzz, the Marshall super fuzz. These pedals are all really closely related to one another. Okay. And the Marshall super fuzz is basically just a take on a tone bender. Now, fun fact, you cannot patent an electrical circuit. So if you think about this real quick, every amplifier built that's tubed, every amplifier built that is tubed, I don't care if it's your hand-wired Milkman to your double-stack Marshall JTM, JCM 1983, or your JCM 800, JCM 900, your Plexis, JTM 45 to your Vox AC10, AC15, AC30, your Supro, your Fenders. It's ancient technology. Your Soldanos, right? Your Soldanos, doesn't matter. It's all super old technology. Yeah, we think we need that Soldano amp, but we really don't. All this stuff is just old technology. But good news is that some of these amps, like there is a difference, right? So between British versus American made, there's small variances. The tubes were a little different. Now amps have a blend circuit in them where you can blend between both the 6L6s or the EL84s or whatever they are, and you can kind of go between. But this concludes the history, kind of sort of the history. I had a lot more information out that I was going to put out on this, but I think after doing this for about 2 or 3 hours, I think I'm good. But yeah, there's a lot of pedals out there from the 60s, and it was kind of like that was the moment in time where psychedelic rock really was taken over and fuzz ruled the music. All right, thank you for watching.